Hello, welcome once again to the program How to Control Your Emotions. And I was just kibitzing with the audience here this evening about the mysteries of life and how I thought Jesus was when he was here. He still is, by the way, when he's here in the flesh. How he changed water into wine, and Moses dividing the Red Seas. And I marvel at the mystery and the magic that's gone out of religion. And I could never accept religion, the deadness of it. You people feel the deadness of religion, yeah. You know, sing song and every day, Rock of Ages. Those guys are stoned. They're religiousized. You know, and you have the boogie woogie down the aisle. That's not religion either. And I marvel at the fact that, you know, it becomes so dead when Moses was so alive and he was able to affect matter. And of course, such a person who can affect matter must be in time and space. Must be beyond the reach of time and space. They must be eternal beings. Because only that which is capable of affecting matter is, well, from that which created matter. See, all of us are related to the world. We're subject to the world like animals. And somehow we know there's something wrong with that. We're better than that, but yet the reality of it, we wake up in the morning, and especially if you haven't painted yourself with bright colored curtains and TV and play on the drums and turn on the TV and you brighten up and you make your hell look like a paradise. But if you went out in the world of reality and just sat there, it's kind of bleak. Something's missing. And that's why you have to have your drums. Imagine the first person that came on the earth. He fell from this paradise state to this magical state where he could live forever and affect material things rather than being affected by material things. I imagine he felt pretty bummed out, pretty bored without the life that he had to create his own life. He had to interact with things. He had like kitten playing with a ball of string. He had to imagine things were lurking around the corner. Probably, otherwise he nothing would turn him on. We're creatures of our environment, but we ought not to be creatures of our environment. But we are, and we've fallen away from what is real, from a paradise state, where we could affect through our consciousness, through being the observer of the world, not subject of the world, but subject to him who created the world. We could actually magically affect things for the good and be co-creators. Not creators, we want to be creators, that's why we fall. It's called pride. And we're separated from the magic. And then we're bummed out because we thought we could be gods and we turn out to be dogs. And we haven't got any magic. And what I want to do is put the magic back into life again. And it's working for me. I'm just, touching the tip of the iceberg. Excuse me. But I know that it's the strangest thing. You've heard preachers talk about it. And you've heard, maybe read people write about it. But I could tell you honestly, and I don't want to brag about it because it spoils it. You brag about it and your ego gets in the way, excuse me, and you fall away from what it is that's doing it. You brag about the fact that you're just about to make a good deal and sure as hell it's going to fall through. Happened to you, hasn't it? See, so if things happen and you can't brag about it, that's it. You'd like to brag about it, but you better not, because you can't take the credit for it, because if you take the credit for it, it's gone. And I'd like to be able to create the magic in this room, but I can't create it on call. See, I can't divide the Red Seas or turn water into wine. I may be able to turn the wine into water. That's about to say $1 million into a dollar, but a dollar into $1 million, So there's a mystique to it. And that you cannot, by will, create like you've got constipation, you know, try to make something happen. Will, for effort. Turn red in the face and nothing happens. You know, Moses, he didn't decide that he wanted to divide the Red Seas. He says, God said to him, now, wave your magic wand, lift up your staff and see what I'm going to do through you. And lo and behold, he was, I guess it scared the pants off him himself. And that's the effect. You have to have that humility, and you've got to be the conduit. But you've got to have that humility to be a conduit and see what happens through you. The very fact that you try to change things or affect things is really a counter to the fact that things are affecting you. If you want to dominate someone, it's only because you've been dominated. You're trying to get back power. It's a wrong kind of power, because then you're being in a big, you're ruling in hell. You're not ruling from heaven. In this world where, you know, a dog-eat-dog world, you're either the dog on top or the dog on the bottom, but you're still a dog. You're either eating or being eaten. The sense of power is only a sense of power. And I don't want this power to come from fantasy either. There are those people in this world, and we were talking in the last program on fantasy and imagining. There are those who teach you that if you imagine something, you can actually make it happen. You have sort of a holograph projection, and you can give it form. Well, it's close to the truth, but it's not close enough to the truth. You must be very careful of trying to make things happen with your imagination. Because last week I spoke about the fact that when you're lost in your imagination, you try to create like a god does, so that things in your imagination becomes real, because have descended into your creation. Creating. You're the god of your own creation, except your creations often turn on you and rebel against you and destroy you. And they become all-powerful. Yes.
What about worrying? Isn't that a form of...
You like that opening, did you?
I mean, because it's like...
got you going already, have I?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, because I know how worrying plays on your mind.
Worrying is a form of faithlessness.
Okay. But it's not imagination?
Worrying pulls you into your imagination.
Oh, okay.
Worrying creates a negative projection, because when you're worrying, it's like faith. So, in other words, it creates more things to worry about. And you think when you worry, you're being creative. You think when you worry, you have a false sense of being good or concerned for your, properly concerned for your children. Now, any person in this room knows when you've had a mother worrying about you, what kind of effect that has on you, right? Why are they worrying? If they think it's of as a goodness. What the truth of the matter is, they're escaping goodness, to be their own goodness. Because only out of worry can they invent their own goodness. See? They can escape the truth of all the mistakes they made the last time they worried. See? So they can, in other words, they can escape in the flurry of activity of their imagination. Now, this flurry of activity of the imagination is caused by the mistake they made, the projection which comes from worry. So when you make a mistake, when you worry, up comes an answer which isn't, which is not human. It's from some other world. In other words, it's error that looks like rightness, like a right act. Or it may not be a deed, it may be just a feeling that comes from a person who worries about you. Oh, Mom, don't worry about me. You know, you get bothered, affected. You feel belittled by someone worrying. You feel the negativeness of their worry. You feel like, you know, you feel their fears for you, and then you become paralyzed and you start making the mistakes they worry about. Behold, the thing I fear most, says Job, has come upon me. Worry is a negative faith, but it's the only faith you know how to have. It's the only way you know how to come up with an idea, a new idea, which is the answer to a problem. But the last problem you had came by the same process. Someone worrying, or you worrying. And you being you projecting, or you being someone's projection. Worry, there's two modes, excuse me, there are two modes of consciousness. Unconsciousness and consciousness. Now, in our life, we live a life of denial. In our ego state, in our fallen, disenfranchised, non-paradisical state, lost state, it's a state of called pride, where we're trying to be our own God. And we try to be a God in our own world of imagination. And just like God, as I said before, in his world, has imagined everything to existence. His things are real. And in his projection, his present spirit projecting into consciousness and into ideas and into emotions and into form, into energy, into form. They are real and they are good because he is good. But when we play God, we are losing ourselves in the imagination, which is, we have a framework. We are made in the image of that creator, so we have a mind very similar to what God's mind is, but we're a little tiny replica of the grand, the grand ego of the universe. So we can do the same thing. We can also come into our mind and start creating. But it is Satan that draws us into our own mind, because it draws us away from knowing God into knowing ourselves as God. And we think there, we are deluded by the lie that is there, that we can think things and they be. And we can imagine things that they be, and that's a lie. Because that's how the hell comes into existence. And this is called ambition. Now, just frame that word. We are taught to be imagining, ambitious, imaginative, creative, we call it. We can't be creative. We're not God. There's no way in the world. So, big deal. How much is Michelangelo's work worth? Millions of dollars. Van Gogh, he was crazy. Who else would cut off his ear for a girlfriend? You know, but his work of art, they're considered creations. I think they're crap. I mean, you know, I see reality. Okay, so the guy can paint. Big deal. So everybody applauds his paint. Oh, wow, Van Gogh, you're wonderful. And he thinks he's wonderful, and they think he's wonderful, and the people who think he's wonderful think they're wonderful for thinking he's wonderful. And they have a role model of what is wonderful, because they're not wonderful. Because if they didn't have something they could involve themselves in, something what they call positive, some role model of how they can be. Well, this man has managed to be worshipped by some little puny little creation. See, he inspires our respect and adulation. Therefore, if we love him and respect him, perhaps we will become a little bit of him, and maybe some of that genius will rub off on us, because we become what we worship. See? And then maybe someone will worship us. See? But there's all this is pride, and all the little things we do. You know, we have a marvelous technological society, but, you know, it's the result of, you know, millions of brains and discoveries and revelations.
To escape.
Yes, each man trying to be his own God, possibly, but there's also creative people out there, co-creative people out there, who've just really discovered things, excuse me, and advanced the civilization to its present state. But remember, the cleverness is only a very small, tiny part. After all, I got a microphone here. It probably took, you know, 500 men 3 lifetimes, you know, to perfect this. So one person got an idea, another person built on it, and so on and so forth until. But really, our genius is, you know, Edison started with a light bulb or whatever it was, and now we've got some pretty remarkable forms of light that we're using, lasers and things like that. But you know, each one of us is only capable of, even in our material creation, of very small amounts of achievement. But we crow so much about it. We get so much energy and so much mileage out of it. See? After a while, some people, you know, are afraid to create, because the adulation they get, and the love they get, and the respect they get goes to their head and makes their head as big as the Washington Monument. And this ego, the puffing up of their ego, conflicts with reality. And it's called anxiety, guilt. And they're afraid to create, because after a while they start to find that they start their creations are negative. Because they feel so guilty, they feel something's happened to their creativity that becomes negative after a while, or they're afraid to create because of the guilt of taking the credit for it. You know what I'm saying? But some of you are afraid to succeed because when someone says, oh, how wonderful, look what he did, suddenly someone has puffed your ego up to the point where you may have come down for a moment to be swelled up with pride to accept the credit for that, but suddenly you've stopped being able to create. Who knows what I'm talking about? You do, don't you? See? And then we have a problem, because there is a true creation, but when you take credit for it, the creation stops. And then you try to create and you go mad. And if you do become successful, it's usually over a big nothing. Behold the art world. I mean, you ever hear such garbage in your life? Because they can't really create. They can't really come up with something new. So they come up with, you know, fried eggs and bacon sprayed with polyurethane paint. Or they take buckets of paint and manure and they start an airplane engine and they blow the stuff on the wall. And all the insane people comes to the point where creation itself becomes anything that God created, we start to hate. And we start to do things which are obscene and ridiculous, bizarre, and we start to worship that as if that was creation. So, we were talking about now bringing things, being truly creative like I am being creative this evening. Because I haven't prepared anything. As a matter of fact, I must admit, I had something in mind to tell you, but it got blown away.
We love it.
I mean, I want to talk to you about time and space and there's some such neat things about that, but I don't know if you're going to be ready for that, so I had to get you in here somehow. But we got, yeah, I'll talk about it. But I want to lead up to it, because we've got 2.5 hours, you know, actually 5 programs for the viewers. And I don't mind if you're going to interrupt me, because yes, there's some, I'm sure that you just maneuver yourself into position whenever you see a hand go up and yes, ma'am, you're getting my message so far, are you?
Yes.
Okay.
I wanted just to, before you skip and go to another subject, on creativity, women have been given credit for creating children at birth. They're given that, well, look at, that looks just like you. The ego image in creativity is just given to us.
Well, or not only that.
And
but women are given credit for having intuition that is beautiful and desirable, that is greater than men. And it isn't the case. And men give deference, they give homage to women. Men think that women have this intuitive insight, this motherly instinct that they look up towards and worship, which is the most dangerous relationship a man could have with a woman. God help you if you look at your wife as if she was some kind of seer, you know. Am I right, ladies? You don't want to be looked up that way and be the source of information and direction to your husbands. You'd rather it be the other way around, wouldn't you? If you're married, that is. But if you're not married, you see, if you're married, a good woman who loves God, who is not egotistical, can see by his light. And she can see by his light that this man has this light. So she hitches her wagon to his star, and she becomes a helpmate, not a playmate. A helpmate, not a deceiver and a betrayer, not supportive of what is wrong, which most women who play that role do, but a helpmate to help man achieve what God has in mind for him, which he doesn't understand himself. She can only see his goodness, his fairness, his justice, his strength when tested. Is not found wanting. Then something in her rises to the occasion of seeing that and joins forces with him, so that the kingdom of heaven is implemented. You know, God in Christ, Christ in man, man through the woman, and of course spreading this consciousness to the children. But the way it is right now, everything's reversed. Man is a fallen being, prideful, fallen from the Creator. Now he thinks he's something he's not. Now there's something in a woman that teaches her to give in to her dark side. Her dark, ladies, do you understand what I'm saying? There's something that talks to you inside. It's a guile, spirit in there, that teaches you to give into your dark side, to be morbid, and then encourage men to be selfish and give into their dark side, so that spirit will have power over all of you. Is that right?
Yeah. What I wanted to say was
No.
that the creativity factor also is a misleading force in our life, because then we have these inalienable rights to be God over our children.
Oh, yeah.
And that there is the most destructive power that we're given, and we're not even
Destructive
aware that this power is working
Ladies, do you
through
understand
us.
what this lady is saying?
Yes.
See, in other words, by default, man has given the power from his spirit to the woman's spirit. And the woman, and it gives the idea of the woman, she has intuition and knowing more than the man, and love greater than God. And she, is that right?
Yes, and
It's
that,
called the liberal. If you find them as politicians, they're called liberals.
I'm an extra liberal.
Ex-liberal. Thank
Yes.
you, thank you.
But in that realm, the more children we have, the larger our universe expands.
Yes.
And the more problems we tend to create through the child to keep the universe functioning in chaos, to surround us and constantly needing our
Looking to
worship
you for
us.
answers.
Yeah, to worship.
Which you worry into existence.
Yes.
Pride.
That's pridefulness. Pride is then, that sort of brings that right to a nice point, that women tend to be warriors. Because they've got such a load. The whole world is clamoring, the whole little universe that they've created, see, and destroyed, to look to her for answers. She has to pull out of her imagination and worry answers into existence. And of course, these are not answers at all. These answers give direction. And when they give direction, that's misdirection. It's confusion. And that is the average home. Now, this is not to demean the ladies in the audience, because I have a daughter that doesn't think I hate her. And no matter what I say about my wife, she doesn't think I hate her either. She lets me now use her, or she didn't like it, because I use her as an example, because she's all women and I'm all men. I'm a little different from all men, and she's still like most women. She's tough. But I have hopes for her yet. If I can survive it, anybody can.
Isn't it the father's fault?
Pardon? I've always seen that whatever happens in the family, the destructive process, is not the fault of the woman. It's really the cause of the madness springs out. She's the window through which it comes, right? The metrics. But the reason why it exists is because the man's world has collapsed. The spirit of the man, man has fallen from his spirit. And that spirit cannot come through him to project. We're talking now about energies, forces, relationships. Relationship with man and his creator. And when that is broken, then the relationship with the man and his recreator, the female. So as a man comes back to the woman for renewing, see, and while he's being renewed, you see, he's becoming a less of a person. He lives in a state of euphoria. When a man looks at a woman, I'm sure, I remember how it felt like I was a kid, young man. It looks like it's an entrance to paradise. It's just the opposite. It's a living hell. Because men have this pride they don't understand, this world that they want to be the king of, and they have to have the woman to reinforce the illusion. See, and that's what dealing with illusion. We're dealing with forces, energies, supportive energies, coming from another dimension, through the woman into the man, and to make him into an animal in his world, to affect his environment. Now, what we're going to talk about is how we're going to change our environment. We have to have a deeper understanding. Like I said, Moses and Jesus, they were great people. But I'm not interested in, well, I'm interested, yes, basically on Jesus saves and the blood of the Lamb and all that sort of thing. But, okay, enough of that. That's the milk, now we need the meat. What is in the mind of these people that makes them different, that can stand up to pharaohs, that can affect their environment rather than being victims of it? Is that what you want to know? I can't give it to you just like that, you know. But at any point you can understand me. If you could hear me at any one single point, listen to this. I'm saying everything in any one thing that I say that's different, which makes it all the same. So at any point you can understand me. Sounds like a lot of things I'm saying. Try to commit them to memory, don't do it. But at any point you can understand me, you have the whole of it. Like I could take one cell from my body or a plant and put it in a dish. That one cell has the whole of the plant in it. The whole design. Incredible. So I can bring you back to reality. I can bring you back to the nucleus of your origin, and you will have everything. Not till tomorrow night, though. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're enjoying the program, we're teaching a meditation process. If you would like to get a copy of this, there's 3 cassettes in a book. The announcer will give you the information. If you don't have the money, we'll give it to you for whatever you can afford. That's been the policy for 27 years, and we'll join you in our next program.
Part 2 is next.
Welcome once again to the program, How to Control Your Emotions. And I've been talking about, they haven't been saying much, about the magic which is uniquely human. Animals are not capable of much, very little. They can learn only a few tricks. But human beings are capable of infinite power and magic. And I think the whole purpose of our existence is to discover that magic. Discover our origin. And you can't discover the magic until you discover the origin. Because most of us are trying to be the origin. We're trying to play God. Look at me, everybody, I'm wonderful. And we're caught up in the adulation, and we punish people for not appreciating us. And we love people for appreciating us. But it's all an ego trip. And if we succeed in getting them to worship us, we are tempting them to worship the wrong God. And they're falling away from God themselves. And we are projecting a little bit of our hell into them, our identity into them. Because they become what they worship. So they can be nothing except by worshiping somebody and then being in a position to get others to worship them. Naturally, they're going to want others to worship. If you get beaten up, you're going to turn around and want to start to beat up. You take on the identity. That's why all abusers, kids who are abused, grow up to be abusers. You become what you hate. You become what's violated you. And it's called pride. See? So, I have learned in my life that there is a right way of getting things, and there's a wrong way of getting things. And there's a right way of affecting the world you live in, and there's a wrong way to affect the world you live in. And the wrong way to affect the world you live in is to try to affect it. To try to make something happen. Because that is dangerous, because if you succeed, you'll take credit for it. And you'll think you've got something going for you, and you haven't. It's like going to Las Vegas. You win, you think, wow, and you're hooked. Then you lose, then you try to find that winning magic. And you may win again. Wow, I knew I had it in there somewhere. And then you lose again, you get bummed out. Something says you don't have it. Well, you're not going to let anybody make you tell you that you don't have it. You're going to prove that you do have it. And so you put in large sums. You prove your confidence by putting large sums, and you feel the excitement, and you feel by getting excited that you can affect the outcome of a dice. You think by being excited you affect the outcome of your children's lives. You can. You make them worse. Because then you affect them, and if you can affect them, so can anybody else. I have brought up children not to be affected by me or anybody else. You try to affect my kids, and you think you hit a brick wall. God help you, you try to mess with Mark. He's only 22. I can't imagine what he's going to be when he's 42. If I had that start, I don't know, I think I'll be floating in space by now. I'm just beginning, see? I'm just beginning to understand. It's a good thing I am, because, you know, if I knew any much more, maybe I wouldn't be able to talk to you. So that would be terrible. So I'm blessed with this little amount, and it's enough. It's enough because, let me get back to the point. All of you are creatures of your environment. All of you are, and you should not be. The Bible says man is first of spirit, first of nature. The devil made me say that. Man is first of nature, then of spirit. It also said man was first spirit, then of nature, because when man fell, he fell to his nature. His nature evolved subject to that which traumatized him, to be affected by nature. You're all creatures of environment, and you are affected by unseen currents, emotional ones, cruelty, seduction, people appealing to your ego, your pride, loving you, extolling your virtues. Oh, isn't he wonderful? Isn't she beautiful? See? Isn't he clever? Or just the opposite, degrading you. Some people degrading you to, well, to force you to be great. You'll be a garbage collector if you don't, you know, get good grades at school. So some people are motivated by the insecurity, the stigma of being a garbage collector. There's nothing wrong with being a garbage collector, basically. But the point is they're motivated by fear, by insecurity to become ambitious. And we all are ambitious, and we're taught to be ambitious, and we're tricked into being ambitious. So you hated being poor. So you were poor. How many people were born poor? Most of you. Many of you come into a poor environment. And you hated poverty. You couldn't have bicycles like the kids down the street who lorded it over you and made you feel envious and inferior. See, and you couldn't have the food that your dad came home drunk every night, and you hated poverty. So, but I was also born poor. And the difference was, although I had a little bit of that rubbing off of me, I had enough awareness to know what it, eventually to see what it was. It was my resentment, which pulled me away from the riches of myself and locked me into poverty, to being poor or to compensate with ambition to be rich. Who understands that? Now, had you not been resentful, let's say it is poverty we're dealing with. Well, it's true with education. You feel inferior, so you get an education. But had you not been resentful, you're going to be a garbage collector. You stupid idiot. You'll never be anything. See? Or, son, my son's a genius. But then again, it pulls you, if you come down to accept that idea that you're a genius, and there comes the ego into you, and then that it conflicts with the divine ego, and you begin to feel inferior. You don't feel unworthy of, you feel unworthy of compliments, yet dependent on them. You can't be anything with it, but you can't be anything without it. You become worse with it, because you need that lie in order to be anything. But when you act in a way to receive the praise and the lies that you need, that you know inside are lies, it only separates you further from reality to be your own God with great guilt. Makes you afraid of accomplishing. See, so we are often tricked into, we're all tricked, one way or the other, either people building us up or knocking us down. To build us up, you come down to accept the idea that you're something that you're not, and then you're dependent on performing for it. Now you know what kind of effect that has on you. And the more you perform, the more you're a slave of what it is you want from that performance, applause. And the applause, only you come down to accept the applause, but then it only pumps up the ego. It keeps you in the fantasy of being something you're not, yet with a terrible anxiety that something is missing and something is dying. Okay? Now, or you feel insecure because you lived in poverty and people knocked you down, and this insecurity drives you to be ambitious. So one person wants to be a nothing because he's afraid to be a something, and one person's ambitious to be a something but he's afraid to be a nothing. But it's ambition. Now, come to time and space a little bit. Because I could sit here and talk to you about time and space, and time is something that must be conquered. Time and space must be conquered, as you won't find eternal life. I'm saying that I'm pulling that out of time and space to tell you that, and then you put it aside somewhere, and maybe we'll talk about it again later on. But I'll just give you a little clue about ambition, and maybe you can see it. In the beginning, there was timelessness. And timelessness is like the center of a wheel. It doesn't move, but somehow it's the power to make motion or to permit motion. You know, the center of the wheel is still. Otherwise, look at your axle, it doesn't move, everything moves around it. This eye of a hurricane, it's still a calm center. Cyclone, tornado, it's still in the center, but you move away from the center and you have force. Timelessness beget time, like the eye of a hurricane. Swirling out of the nothing comes everything that everything is made of. And time is the flux. Time is a flux, but time is the first law of nature, because it comes from timelessness, which is beyond nature. Now, we shouldn't be subject to time, but we should be subject to time, that which made time. Somewhere within us there's a timelessness. Somewhere within the universe, within ourselves, there's stillness. And we have to find this stillness from which came time to become subject to that stillness. Him who created time and everything, time, light, matter, space. We have to find that, because that is what we've fallen from, to be God. And we have to find that in the stillness. We have to realize we're not God and repent of being God, because if we can't repent, we can't change, and He can't flow through us. He who created time and space from the very beginning cannot now we cannot be His co-creator. We cannot be recreated, reborn, and to be eternal beings, where time is subject to us, because we're subject to Him that created time. But in falling away from Him who created time, we became subject to time and space and change and decay. And therefore we're not affecting the universe for the good, although we're struggling to try and to counter-effect its effect on us. And we're struggling in a sea of time, moving away from our struggle, like a person sinking in a swamp. You dream you're sinking in a swamp sometimes. How many people dream they sink in a swamp? Anybody feel like they're drowning, sinking? That's it. Now, from the beginning came time, from timelessness. And time is the wind of the Spirit. See? Creating. And everything in this universe is everything else. Einstein made one mistake. Listen to me, downgrading Einstein. He missed a dimension. Light, matter, time, space, light, matter being interchangeable. I say they're all interchangeable, because he forgot timelessness. And he forgot that time came out of timelessness. It's a movement. It's a motion. It's an energy of some kind you can't measure. But you know it's passing you by. You feel the grind against your soul, right? And you feel yourself caught up and floating into it, away from something, right? Dying. And I'm going to come to the reason why you are dying. But out of timelessness came time, and time, moving faster as it moved away from the center to the periphery, gathered great momentum and suddenly congealed into light. And light, pressured by the motion from the motionless center, became matter. And matter hung in space, and space, time moved past, because matter is heavier than space. And so therefore space is endless, because space is, well, let's see, space is where time would have been if it was time. In other words, let's imagine a boat on the ocean, on the stream, anchored, a piece of paper floating by the boat. You cut the anchor, now the boat catches up with speed of the stream, which is time. But it can never catch up with a piece of paper. So the space, time flows on. So space is where, you know, the boat would have been, see, and where it is. But it's always moving faster than the boat, the stream is, so it can never, time is endless. You can chase it till kingdom come, and it never will. It's endless. There's no end to it, as far as we're concerned. But if you put the motor on the boat, speed up the time, speed up the boat, catch up the time, what happens to space? You're catching up to where you would have been, and then there's no time, because you're catching up to its motion. But then matter disintegrates. It becomes a long stream of energy and then light, and matter is no more, because it cannot exist in that space without space to exist in. That's the peculiarity of matter. So, but there's no time there. As the faster you go, the slower time becomes until there isn't any more. But that's still not timelessness. There's just no time for that object. See? Now, why have I said this? I don't know. But you've understood it. But I don't know what I said. No. Why have I said that? Because of ambition. I sit here, and I'm here. But the minute I said I'm going to walk over to that prop man over there, Mike, it's a distance, 10 yards. The minute I say I'm going to walk over there, time exists, space exists, and distance exists. It wouldn't have existed had I said I'm not going to go. I'm going to New York. So I start walking to New York, and I feel time now. If I had not said I had not gone to New York, I wouldn't have felt, I just sat still in my room if I was not ambitious, and I would have felt that I was here already. It's only when you're not here and you're traveling there that you feel time. Right? All right, now, so I have learned that when I drive down the highway, a strange thing happens to me. It happened a long time ago, and I didn't know what it was. I felt like the highway was driving down me. I felt I was perfectly still, and you're like I'm in one of those amusement parlors, and the road is coming towards you, and you're still. And the truth of the matter is, when you find your center, you start to notice that you're outside time and space. And that these hands of yours are on a steering wheel, but they're not your hands, but you're looking through your eyes with your eyes. And that, you know, you're driving down the highway and you get the odd feeling sometimes, when you're objective outside time and space, that even, you know, even Einstein said it's not wrong for you to say that New York is coming to you. It's not wrong, and if you understand his theory, you'll see that if you go out into space and you shoot out into space, it's not wrong because he said everything's relative. Out in space, you could say the universe was coming to you and you was perfectly still. Or you could say you're going towards the star, or the star is coming towards you. Two things moving towards each other in space, no relativity. Okay? But you could say one is still. You know what it's like in space. You've seen it on the movies. Everything is still. You don't feel like you're moving at all. All of a sudden, something goes whoosh. But the other guy thinks you're doing that. Whoosh. See? Depends on your viewpoint, right? You could say that. But more so, you could say the Earth is going around the sun. But you could say the sun is going around the Earth, and it would both be true. From a physical point of view, the Earth is going around the sun from a scientific viewpoint of view, but from a metaphysical point of view, there's a paradox. If you're the center and you're driving down the road, but the road is driving, and you found your center, the whole universe revolves around you. Take a ball, okay? Where's the center of the ball? Put your finger any place and it will be it. Correct? Who could say that wasn't the center? But anybody, some other person could also be the center too, for them. But truthfully, everybody discovers that center has discovered the same, and that's as far as I could take my analogy, the same Father, the same origin within oneself. You could be any place in the universe and yet be centered in the same place, because that's what God is omnipresent, omniscient. He's everywhere at the same time. He's where you are if you'll find him. See what I'm saying? Now, but this cannot happen if you're ambitious, because the minute you say, I want to make $1 million, and you set a goal, your own ego trying to fulfill its pridefulness, to say, you see how clever I am? You drive around in your Mercedes or whatever it is, and you have a lot of pride in achieving this. You're moving towards this, and you're moving away from where it could be, where all things could happen through you, if you're already there. You have to know that you're already there. It's only a matter of patience, not impatience. See? Not setting goals and seeking the purpose for which God had created you and say, okay, what do you want from me? So, okay, you want me to work by the sweat of my brow? Fine, I will, and do it with a good spirit. If you're a cleaning lady, make a ballerina out of it. See? And then you'll find that time passes quickly. As a matter of fact, if you're living right, you don't feel time. But if you're living wrong, you either feel like it's a grind and you want to have an amusement to pass the time because it's painful, or you don't have enough time to achieve your goals. And when you get there, it's a failure, or if it's a success, but a success is failure too, because you've moved away from reality. You've been attracted away from reality, and you've become part of the thing that has tempted you. You don't own it, it owns you. You never own anything. It owns you when it tempts you to move toward it, because you're moving away from the very spirit that could protect you from whatever it is behind the object that's teasing you. Who understands that? Good. Hear that? So, they're lying to you. My friends, they're lying to you when they say you should set goals. Because I have everything in my life, and I'm where I'm sitting right here because I didn't set a goal. I didn't know I was going to sit here. I knew I had some purpose, all right? I didn't know what it was. So all I didn't know how I knew this. As a matter of fact, it's hard to articulate. And it seems to be coming across now to me to express to you. But I had this because I had the kernel, the nucleus of that spirit which knows things without knowing why it knows, without having to intellectualize everything. It's a happening. I have a relationship with my Father. Not as a higher relationship as the Father that Jesus had, or Moses, but nevertheless a relationship. And everything in this world is relationships. Your relationship with your Creator determines, or lack of one, determines your relationship with your wife, with people, places, things, objects. Do you become a slave? Do you own them, or do they own you? Do you have a positive influence on your family? Or do they have a negative influence on you? See? Are you moving away from reality, trying to be a reality? Setting up a wrong relationship? Setting up wrong waves in the world? Being infected by wrong energies? Forces you cannot see because you've lost the illumination to see with? I've done all the talking this evening, haven't I? I shouldn't have done it. But anyway, my producer's going to spank me afterwards. But you see the point. These points have to be made. You do not set goals, but live every moment wisely. Even when you're eating food. Simple, like eating food or spending money. Is spending your money, or is your money spending you? See? When you're eating food, why do you eat something you're not supposed to eat? Why? You know, I shouldn't eat it, but here goes. So delicious, heavenly. Why do you do that? It's as simple as that. Why is that? Because whenever you do something that you know is wrong, so you know it's what's right, but you don't listen to it. You do what makes you feel good, God. It makes you feel heavenly. The devil's food cake becomes an angel's food cake, see? It doesn't make you feel like a devil, it makes you feel like an angel. It's the devil that made you feel like the angel, see? So, but you're doing what you know is wrong. You're mingling, you're commingling with the Spirit, and your character is being forged and weakened. That's why it's dangerous not to give in to your impulses. But the forces in this world are teaching you to give in to the impulses, because without you, the evil on this earth cannot manifest itself. It's used a borrowed form. You know, God creates, the devil can only destroy. It has to recreate, reform you, rearrange you in some way so it can make a home for it to live through, or make you a vehicle full of its expression, a conduit for its hell. And you're experiencing all that, and that's all because of, and all of these things are being taught in the churches, and positive thinking, and glorified. The relationships that exist between men and women is all glorified. Creativity is being taught in cockamamie ways. See? And because the wrong people, the bats have got in the belfry, and I'm telling you it's all lies. Do you believe me? Do you? Good. Because when you believe me, you can start doubting the insanity of the world and work quietly and diligently and save your money and save your essence, save your energies. Don't commingle with the wrong kinds of people, and don't give even a nickel when you turn it over and don't spend it. You go into a store to buy a shirt, maybe you don't need one. Learn to conserve, learn to go without, not because you're some saint denying yourself, not that, but just be wise, and you get rewarded by the Spirit to be wiser, and you to resist temptation more so. So that eventually you become the child of that light, and you start to receive powers, not for several years. Don't think you're going to get, that you do what I tell you, that you go to a store and you don't buy a candy bar, that you think you can walk on water tomorrow morning. It has to form. You've got to be patient and know that that's the future for you. But meanwhile, you get marvelous benefits of being a happy person. You won't live in hell. Your children will start to respect you. Things start to go easier for you because they see you start to flow into them, and they start to flow into you respectfully without will or force. Tomorrow we'll continue with a similar subject, and I won't talk as much tomorrow. And the producer's doing this. He says, send money. Otherwise we can't. We need your flow. God doesn't make money up there. The Treasury makes it. You earn it, and we need it to pay the bills. So please support the program. If you don't, this unique program won't be on the air. If you feel like you're enlightened and lifted by it, do it for yourself and do it for others yet to experience this kind of thing. The material is available. Please stay tuned. How to get this identity in this relationship is available, and the announcer will give you the information, and we'll talk to you tomorrow night.
Part 3 is next, following this brief message.
The preceding lecture was produced by the Foundation of Human Understanding. For more information, write to the Foundation of Human Understanding at P.O. Box 1009, Grants Pass, Oregon 97526, or call 1-800-877-3227. Thank you.
Welcome once again to the program, How to Control Your Emotions. And just a recap from our last discussion, I was talking about ambition. When you set a goal, you move away from yourself, and then you become a slave of the thing that has beckoned you to fall to it. And an unhealthy relationship exists between you and objects, people, places, and things, especially those people who support you in your ambitions and goals. So everything really is relationships, relatives. If you have a good relationship with God, whoever that is. See, most of us don't know where to find God, but the very fact that we have not found him alters our relationships with people, places, and things. So instead of we, you, me and Daddy, Big Daddy, affecting the world creatively, creating a kingdom of heaven, that relationship being non-existent, it's like the earth, the moon going around the earth and held by its gravitational pull. Can never get free. The moon has a relationship with the earth, and it affects the tides and the mating of the fishes and God knows what. It can never be free. It has a relationship. But if another heavenly body would sweep by that moon with a stronger gravitational pull, then off goes the moon into that orbit, and bingo, the Earth has no moon. Now the moon is now trailing behind this other object. Now that's a relationship. Now one has been robbed and violated, and it's the same thing with your own life. We have a heavenly something that created us, and we are orbiting, in the manner of speaking. Up pops an imposter with some power, an earthy power, and pulls us away into a relationship with it. So we now we're cut off from it, our power to deal with it. I've often said you can rebel against God, but you can't free yourself from the devil, no matter how much you fight. Now you're on this earth, and you're struggling with the fact that it affects you. People affect you. People who know how to, in whom the original nucleus dwells, the original temptation. They are master of the arts of revolving you, being the center of your orbit, and living through you. There's a connection there, a relationship, and they're the center of that relationship, and you're focused in on them. You're focused in on teacher. The teacher can put things into your mind. If you don't pay attention, they cannot. I want to defocus you. You're focused in. The kingdom of hell is pouring into your mind, and you're acting it out, and you can't help yourself. You can't stop yourself. Everything is bad luck for you, even good luck. God help you if you wish for things and you get it. You won't be happy with it. You know it, don't you? Now, that is a capping of our last discussion. Who has comments, inquiries? Who wishes for me to continue a line of thought? Okay. Okay, I'm glad we have some hands going up, because my producer hates me for me to sit here and be a talking head.
Yes, I was wondering, you said in your last show about giving up goals, and I've spent the last couple of years going to night school just for that very reason. I don't know how to, I felt if I didn't do it, I wouldn't exist.
I didn't say you couldn't be an engineer, because being an engineer could be what you're interested in. That is what is revealed to you to be interested in, for you to do it hand now. Just keep being interested in doing it what's hand now, it becomes something else. But don't set goals. You know, don't exceed your grasp. Try to understand the meaning of what I'm saying without me sort of falling over my own words. Don't let your reach exceed your grasp, because you're going to fall. Just do how I've done mine through life is just do what I love to do. I don't do what I loathe to do. And when I was in school, you couldn't make me do anything I didn't want to do. You couldn't make me learn, you couldn't make me study, because I wouldn't go around that orbit. I wouldn't orbit around somebody else's will. I felt it as a violation of my soul. I felt religion was the same thing. When I went to synagogue, I laughed my head off. I went to synagogue for laughs, because I couldn't believe that grown-up men thought that muttering under their breath was worship. You Catholics know what I'm talking about too, don't you? That's like a synagogue, isn't it? So it's all of it. They don't understand what worship is. So no, if you're centered, and you like Jesus said, he said, seek first the kingdom of God, and it's within you. He said where it was. Be still and know it, that I am God and you're not. See? And then you'll know my purpose. Seek first that which is me, my purpose on earth. See? Seek to know me, and then all other things will come about. But you seek the things to come about first, because then if you can make them come about, you can crow about it as if you were God. Now, I'm saying just do what is just natural for you to do.